Welcome to the To Fight For podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Heather. We're offering you a seat at our table to join our conversations, which center on healing through reimagining hospitality and relationships. This season, we are focusing on building and maintaining authentic, healthy friendships.
Our friendship has been through the ringer, but now it's stronger than ever because we chose to fight for it. Our hope is to inspire you to fight for yours.
Okay, it's recording.
We're back.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to Fight For. If you're coming back a second time, yay! It means you want to hear more. Last time we shared our story, our personal story about our friendship, what it looked like in the beginning. And today we want to elaborate a little bit more on what healthy relationships look like and unhealthy relationships look like when we're talking about friendship. I think something that I've experienced, and Jamie and I experienced this in our friendship, that just walking away and not actually talking about how we feel in the moment or about what is happening, nothing good is going to come of that. That leads to grief. It leads to the death of a relationship. It's going to be very, very difficult to heal as well on your own, rather than working through those things and being able to communicate to one another how to move forward and what it looks like. So we wanted to share a little bit today on how to do that. What does that actually look like? What are the signs of a healthy relationship? What are the signs of an unhealthy friendship? And, how do we reconcile when we're in the midst of conflict? Because we do that with our other relationships, with our partners, with our kids. We're not afraid to confront. I'll go to my husband and say, hey, you were out of line there, or you were too hard on one of our kiddos, or you kind of embarrassed me with that comment in front of our friends. We're not afraid. If we've been married or we're in, some sort of partnership with someone, we're not afraid to go to them and say, hey, that hurt me. For whatever reason, in friendship, it's completely different. Something happens and you confront someone and all of a sudden it becomes this threat of abandonment.
Let's circle back to some of our backstory of our friendship and why we wanted to do this podcast. But I think it's important that we go back and talk about our friendship and some of the unhealthy aspects of our friendship then, opposed to now, because some of you that are listening are in unhealthy friendships. Let's be honest, you are. Call it what it is. You probably already know that it's unhealthy, and maybe you aren't completely sure that it's unhealthy, but hopefully this will help clear some things up for you. And then we will talk about, what does a healthy friendship look like? And can you make that unhealthy friendship healthy? So we're going to touch on all those things. But I think let's go back. Let's talk about the unhealthy aspects of our friendship. We're calling it our friendship number one. And this was our friendship number two. For those of you who did not listen to the first podcast of our friendship history, friendship number one, we were friends. And then we were not friends for almost 2 years. And then we rebuilt our friendship. So what we have right now is friendship number two. But I want to talk about friendship number one and why it was unhealthy. For me, when I look back on it, I think it was unhealthy because we didn't have super authentic, transparent conversations. I think we touched on it. Were we transparent with each other sometimes? Absolutely. Did we have authentic conversations with each other occasionally? Sure. But I think that there was a lot of stuff that I needed to say to you, and probably vice versa. And we didn't do that. So then I had this unspoken stuff that I wanted to say to you. I only shared some things or some frustrations, right? And there was other things that I wanted to say and I never said them to you. So it automatically built up a wall. I started to piece together a wall against you, which then made it easier for me to walk away from you.
Yeah. And piggybacking off of that, yes, there were some authentic and transparent relationships, but those were like, about our faith or about our family or things like that. What was missing was the freedom and the safety to be able to confront one another. So when you were talking about, building these pieces, I essentially was doing the same thing out of protection. I felt that wall and I was building my own, right? This doesn't feel right, but I don't want to bring it up. I I know myself. I hate confrontation. I don't like confronting someone. I get physically worked up about it. I would much rather keep and maintain the peace and stay in a relationship far too long, probably when I shouldn't, versus make peace. And by making peace, we're actually confronting the conflict so that I can have internal peace, right?
Mhm.
I think the absence of conflict in a relationship does not mean that there is peace.
Absolutely.
And so,
Yep.
internally, I was lacking peace in our friendship, but I never wanted to confront you because I didn't want that conflict. I didn't want that confrontation. So there was not this prerequisite, if you will, that we can approach one another at any time. That came later on in friendship number 2 when we were setting
Mhm.
boundaries, and we'll talk about that. I think confronting one another with our actual feelings was not something that we ever invited into our first friendship.
Yeah, I would agree. I 100% agree. I feel like we had some conversations about our friendships that wasn't about faith or our partners or our families, but I feel like it was very surface level. We would say something and we would never dive deep into the conversation, which is the major difference now. But I 100% agree that it was a lot of talking about our faith. How's your marriage going? What's happening with your kids? Do you need some parenting advice or help? Can we just kind of vent to one another about things that we're frustrated about? So it was a surface level. I feel like it was a little deeper than surface level, if I'm being honest, but I don't think it was anything like our friendship number 2.
This is how I would classify it.
Okay.
Friendship number 1, if it was a grenade, had the safety pin in.
Oh.
Friendship number 2, there's no safety pin.
Good.
And
Yeah,
I think
like it.
it doesn't mean that we have an explosive relationship. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is that everything is on the table and I'm not afraid of you anymore, right? I can approach you now and know that even if I disagree with you or there's a problem, that you're going to receive me. Before, there was this fear. There was this safety pin. There was this crutch of we're going to skirt around any issue that might be somewhat uncomfortable, and we're not going to talk about that. And I probably have more relationships like that if I'm looking throughout my life because, and we can see this today, the polarization of so many different hot topic issues. If you find yourself in those kind of conversations where you have opposing viewpoints, they feel extremely uncomfortable. And I think with our friendship, it was very similar. We talked about the things we knew we had in common. And yeah, there might be some deep conversations. And for sure that there were. I mean, we were friends for, I don't know, years before we had our falling out. So surely we cried together and laughed together and had those moments. But in terms of any sort of viewpoint that might be taken a different way from the other person and will really require true vulnerability that might not be matched on the other side, we steered clear of those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. And as much as Heather says she doesn't like confrontation, I am semi the opposite. I actually enjoy confrontation, but here's the thing with me. I enjoy confrontation with people who I am not super close with. So if we are out, which we've experienced this, and I feel like somebody is threatening my people. So we're out and let's say, some guy is saying something or somebody is being really rude and they're threatening one of my people, then I would get in their face and I'd be like, really, let's talk about this. Like, what's your problem? I have no problem with confrontation like that. Where I've grown from friendship number 1 to friendship number 2 is my confrontation with the people that I love. And I know where that comes from. I know it's from my childhood trauma. And let's talk about your inner girl or let's talk about your inner childhood. What do you have there? And everybody's like, I don't want to talk about that. Nope, I don't want to do it. That's where our stuff comes from. The reality is, from a psychology side, it comes from our childhood. It was built by our experiences and by how we viewed the world. And everybody is different. And I had been hurt in my family, had been hurt in so many past relationships. I mean, there was a time in high school that I went to high school and I didn't have a single person who would talk to me other than a couple of my really close guy friends. And all my girlfriends who I thought were really close completely stopped talking to me. So from a young age in my family to then a teenage age in high school, and then you carry it on through college and everything else, I was just carrying around these traumas, which are really wounds, which prevented me from feeling like I was worthy enough of sharing how I was actually feeling with you. As much as you were scared to say, this is how I'm feeling because you don't like confrontation. For me, I don't care about confrontation, but for me, it was, I don't want to share exactly how I'm feeling with you in friendship number one because it's uncomfortable. I didn't like it. I didn't really feel worthy of having good relationships because I didn't have a ton of good relationships. And the ones I thought were good usually ended because people just left me.
Yeah. And what's interesting is there's a lot of overlap there, except that the perspective is different. So
Mhm.
for me, I often didn't feel safe with my feelings or felt safe to express my feelings. So I then tried to internalize those. I never wanted to put how I was feeling on other people. So I think as we started kind of moving through this unhealthy part of our relationship, and it wasn't always unhealthy, right? When it ended, we were not in a good place. But
No.
there were beautiful moments. I mean, in the early part of our relationship as we were growing it, I think it's important to note that if you find yourself in a unhealthy relationship, it doesn't mean it was always unhealthy. Something happened, or one person grew, or both of you kind of developed some sort of codependency. There's a lot of other things that could have happened in that relationship over time. But I think what happened with you and I is at that point, I was a lot more insecure in my own strength and my own emotions and who I was. You are a lot, I would just say like a stronger, bolder personality. And that was intimidating to me. So I didn't feel safe to share my feelings with you. And that's also on me, right? I have to be able to communicate how I'm thinking, what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling in a relationship. It's on me if I'm not doing that.
Right. Yeah. Even though, so I do want to say this because I know some people who are listening are probably like, oh, I kind of feel like Heather or I kind of feel like Jamie. And I am really bold, but what has happened from friendship number one to friendship number two, which going to grad school for clinical counseling and stuff, is I have softened and I've healed a lot of my childhood wounds. So even though I will still confront, I do it much differently now than I think I did.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is part of growing as a person. You have to continue to grow as a person or you can't grow in a relationship. You have to be comfortable as a person. Does that mean you have to be perfect? No, nobody's perfect. That's not what I'm saying, right? We're going to forever heal from whatever's happened in our life. We all have a different timeline of healing. And then life in general brings us more crap that we have to deal with.
Mhm.
For heaven's sakes, as much as my family's gone through sicknesses, it's just all the time, I feel like.
Mhm.
But we have to grow as a person, notice our wounds, heal them, or we can't have the relationship we do now. If you and I didn't do our own growing, we would not be where we are now. Even if I reached out to you again, hey, like, can we go to breakfast and talk about our friendship number one? I don't think that we would be where we are.
Definitely not. Because as you were softening, I was sharpening. I was becoming more confident in who I was as a person. I was learning about my identity, who God made me to be, learning how to find my voice, learning how to feel safe in my feelings, learning how to communicate effectively in healthy ways. And so I think, we came to a place where I was no longer afraid of getting punched in the face by you. And you came to a place where maybe you were no longer having thoughts of punching me in the face. So I mean, I say that joking, but we definitely both had to do our growing. But in that moment, I think it's important for us to look at, right before that split, before that friendship one ended, that there was a brashness to you. There was an insecurity to me. This, I don't feel safe to say anything about how I feel. And I just kind of shouldered it. And then there was that silence. But there were some other things that were unhealthy in our relationship beforehand. And I think they would have surfaced, and they have surfaced even in friendship number two.
Yeah.
But we've been able to work through them, identify them, call them out, and be able to have healthy conversations as we worked through them. But those things were present in the relationship. So like envy was present. And exclusion was present with certain friend groups. There were some other things that had those roots in our relationship that were present. And those were more of the symptoms, right? Those were symptoms of a problem. And each of those things were isolated. They were all connected with one another.
Right. Yeah.
And then those things grew tentacles in our relationship. And then we felt that, that lack of the ability to work through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's transition to why our friendship is healthy now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not perfect, but it's healthy. So for those of you who didn't listen to the first podcast, give you a quick little rundown. We hadn't talked in almost 2 years. I reached out to Heather. Okay, this is after a very long silence. Sent a text message and just asked if she wanted to get together for breakfast and talk. So we meet for breakfast in our small rural town, which I'm going to tell you, I was terrified as hell.
I was walking in like, I am now feeling strong and I don't have a problem communicating my feelings.
Yeah. So totally flip-flopped from friendship number 1, right? Because when we live in a rural town, I have no clue who's going to be here. I know I'm going to cry, which is the other thing. This is how I know I've softened. Friendship number 1, I maybe cried sometimes, but it wasn't nearly as much as now. And I'm not saying you have to cry to be vulnerable and authentic, but I let my feelings show way more in this friendship than I did in friendship number 1 because I had walls up. I was constantly protecting myself, not from you necessarily, but from everybody. And so I reach out, we meet at a local restaurant and we sit down and I'm just like, I'm so sorry. And then I just start bawling.
And I was eating pancakes, listening. And, and I think, we kind of joke about it now. It was a very hard thing to go through.
It was. Yeah.
But I also knew in that moment that God was working in that friendship because I was at a place where I could receive Jamie's apology and Jamie was in a place where she could offer it. And when those two things come together, it's more than just forgiveness, right? It's reconciliation. And that was the first step in reconciliation. We both had needed to work through our stuff, work on the healing, forgive one another, and then come to a place where we could own whatever responsibility we needed to own on our parts, and then be able to work through that. And I remember telling you, even in that moment, you had said, I don't know what's going to happen after this. I don't know if we're going to be friends. I think I very honestly responded like, yeah, I'm very cautious because I don't want this to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, I did say that. I don't know what this means. I just needed to apologize to you. Maybe we build another friendship and maybe we don't. I don't know. I don't know what our future holds. But because you said I'm very cautious in the friendship, it already set a boundary speaking up for yourself. Then when we were hanging out by ourselves, we continued to have conversations about our friendship number 1. It wasn't like, hey, do you want to go to breakfast with me so that I can apologize and we can talk about all the stuff in our friendship number 1? And we went to that breakfast and I guess maybe we can build a new friendship. It wasn't like that. And this is the key point of having a healthy relationship. You can't just have one conversation. For heaven's sakes, one conversation doesn't heal crap. It just doesn't. So we continued to have conversation after conversation. And did we have the same conversation sometimes? The same topic. But what I noticed as we started to have the same topic conversation, more stuff started to come out. I started to notice some more of my behavior or things that maybe I had said to you. And I was like, oh, geez.
And I was feeling safer to open up. Like I could be more vulnerable because I'm like, okay, you're sticking in it. You're here, you're listening, you're receiving what I have to say. So the more we talked about it, the safer I felt to bring up some of these things that I didn't bring up the first conversation we had.
Yeah. So for a healthy relationship, let's talk about what we have now.
I mean, I think now I'm not afraid to confront you. There's been a boundary established between you and I that if something happens or something is said, that we can go to the other person and receive it. There's a safety there. There's a precedent has been set that we're going to treat each other just like we treat our partners or our kids or whatever. When we have a conflict, we're going to sit down and we're going to work it out. Walking away is no longer an option. I'm pretty sure I've threatened your life Like, you don't get to do that again.
Yeah, you have. Like, you're not walking away from me again, just so you know I will hunt you down.
Yes, which I really would. What I think, you know, having that precedent set means that we are approachable. You cannot have a healthy relationship if you are not approachable. And I think that's huge. You have to be able to receive someone else's loving, constructive criticism of you. I am your rear view mirror, right? And you are mine. We got each other's blind spots covered. When you say, I got your six, I got your back, that's what a friendship should actually look like. And that means we have to be able to confront one another. Because my heart for my friends is I want you to be the best version of you. And I'm there to help you become that, and you're there to help me become that. So you have to say, when I'm stuck in my head and I'm overthinking things, Heather, hold on, take a deep breath, get out of your head. You're overthinking this, or you're not responsible for this, or the things that you will like speak into my life when I'm spiraling on some sort of thought, rabbit hole. Those are the things that you offer me. And I have to be able to sit there and receive it. And now that we have that precedent set where we are approachable with one another and we can talk through these things, that feels safe. I can call you out and you might not like it at first. I know when you don't like something and I still sweat through it, but I no longer feel like you're going to walk away. I know we're going to work through it because we have that commitment to one another.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on that from a psychology point. When you confront me on something, or when I confront you on something and we call each other's behavior out in a loving manner, we're calling each other out because we love each other and we want each other to be the best versions. I know your heart is not against me. I know your heart loves me. And the things that you say to me is because you love me. Now, does that mean it's always easy? No, sometimes it is not easy. And sometimes that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, whichever one you are, I'm more of a fighter. I'm also a flighter in my relationships. I have flown away from a lot of them because it's just easier than dealing with stuff. But then you have fawn, and that I think of a deer. When you think of a deer, it runs away from conflict. It will look at the conflict for a little while. Oh, here comes a car. And then it typically runs away, right? Or it could be freezing. Think of freeze as a deer too, and you see it, you're driving down the street and the deer just freezes in the middle of the road and you're honking your horn and it just stares at you like, oh my gosh. So you have to recognize, first of all, which one you are or which two that you typically are, so that you can recognize those symptoms in your body. Because when you come to me and you say things to me, hey, Jamie, I love you, but I got to call this out. You're starting to get a little bit of that angry side again. And I know where it comes from. I know, again, it's from my past trauma. And it's something that I've healed from, but in uncomfortable situations or in conflict, I know that it comes back up in me. The difference is now I recognize it.
Right.
So when you come to me and talk to me, I'm like, oh, geez, I can feel it in my gut. I can feel it in my body. I know like this fighter sensation is starting to come up in me again, but I notice it, which makes it easier to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Part of what's really important too is that we've had enough conversations about this now where I know that about you.
Yeah.
So how I approach you, how I communicate with you, that matters. In a relationship, we need to fully know the other person. Now, we're talking about deep relationships. You don't have to fully know everybody that you sit on the bleachers next to at your kids' sports games. We're talking about deep, intimate friendships.
Yeah.
But I know these things about you. I know your past, I know what triggers you. I know your somatic responses to stressful situations, and you know mine. So that's why I will approach you with extreme caution and, maybe like a mouth guard. We know this about one another, and that enables us to have these conversations because I'm not just centering it on maybe something that you said hurt my feelings. I'm like, okay, I know Jamie well enough, and I know that it might have come from here. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt when I approach you, and I'm going to name the wound, name the hurt, or the behavior that I see. Usually it's not you hurting me. Hey, I see this, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it.
Right.
But I think how we approach, how we communicate, making sure that we're always talking in love. And, you being able to receive that. And like you said, knowing my heart, knowing that I'm always for you, that I want you to thrive. And sometimes, I see that when you can't, and vice versa.
Yeah. And the other thing is talked about not only our expectations in friendship, but our values in life. And one of my things that I have shared with you is my friends are my family. Out of my whole family, I talk to my brother, and then my mom lives next door to me in a tiny house, and my in-laws live on the same frontage road. So you talk about a family compound. I have it, My brother doesn't live there. He lives in the city, but I really only talk to my mom and my brother. One of my values or expectations of friendship is that my friends are my family. I expect to be invited to birthday parties. And I've shared that, where before I didn't say those things out loud, and then I would get disappointed when I don't get invited to things. If you're in my inner circle, you are my 3, 4, 5 core friends. Why am I not getting included? Because in my value of a friendship is I want to be in it with you.
Even because you want to be invited, you want to celebrate me because
Correct.
you love me. I think there's a big difference between just having the desire to be included versus I love you enough to celebrate you. I want you to want me there.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. I want you to want me there.
Yes.
That's what I want. It's not about, I just want another invitation. So yes, that's super important. I'm glad that you clarified that, because I want you to want me there for your kid's birthday. I want you to want me there for your birthday. I want you to want me there when your parents are going through health issues, when your kids are struggling in school or with mental health and reaching out to me. Hey, what's your opinion? Or can you just sit and cry with me? Can you come and have a glass of wine or a whole bottle of wine? And we just sit and barely talk and we cry, and that's what we do. That's what I want out of a friendship. And I've not been very good really at all in communicating that. But this is why our friendship number 2 is so much more healthy, because we have transparent conversations. So you got to have transparent conversations, and you have to be willing to accept what the other person is saying without immediately going into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, noticing it, right? Don't take offense. Notice that that's coming up in you, but do not allow it to take over.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think not being easily offended is really hard to do these days, because I feel like there's an offense to everything. Our culture, our climate that we live in right now is just so hot. It just feels like everybody's ready to be boiling at the push of a button. There's a tipping point that's so tangible right now in everyone, whether it's being politically motivated or religious, or take your pick of all the hot topics in the world right now. I think knowing that I'm safe to be me, and for me to have an open posture towards you to be safe to be who you are. No, we have very similar values. We've said before, we disagree on things, and we share some of those things. We want to work through conflict in the air. I firmly believe that how we receive what is said to us is kind of the defining moment in a relationship. If you feel like you cannot approach someone and share your feelings, that is a friendship that needs to be evaluated.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's healthy to evaluate your friendships. You have to evaluate your relationships with people. Are they healthy or are they unhealthy? And maybe they're only semi-unhealthy, but why are they semi-unhealthy? What needs to be talked about? What needs to be fixed? What confrontation needs to happen in order to make that unhealthy, semi-unhealthy relationship become healthy? And sometimes the fact of the matter is, thankfully, our friendship, we could rebuild it and have friendship number 2. But there are going to be times, there have been people in my life where after reevaluating, I knew that I couldn't have a friendship number 2 with them. I just knew it wasn't going to be healthy for either one of us, right?
Right.
You have to think of it from your perspective. I knew it wasn't going to be healthy for either one of us, but I especially knew it wasn't going to be healthy for me, so I couldn't have friendship number 2. And that's okay. It's okay. But there should be an ending conversation and not a ghosting.
Yeah, there's a difference. And I think when we talk about how do you know if you continue on a relationship with somebody, your relationship can change. And I think we need to allow that. We do not live in a both and society. I might not be a good, positive, healthy relationship with this person anymore, but it doesn't mean that when I see them at Walmart, I need to look away, right?
Right.
I mean, we can say, hey, there's a reorientation going on here. We might not be as close as we used to be, but we can still be cordial. We can still talk. Our kids can still be friends. Our husbands can still hang out. Whatever happened, there doesn't have to be this sharp cutting or ghosting. And that will be an entirely other podcast. We're going to episode. We're going to talk about ghosting, but there are ways that we can reorient ourselves in a healthy way towards other people. If we decide after that reevaluating this relationship, I'm not just going to cut it, but I'm going to reorient myself around that person. And it's just going to look different than what it was. If we are able to accept that, that helps us in our healing, right?
Right. Because both of our healing would have been easier. Maybe. I mean, I could just be making that up in my head, but I feel like our healing would have been easier if friendship number 1, we would have said, we need to take a break from each other.
Yeah.
This has gotten to an unhealthy place and we need to just break. And then there would have been some closure. There wasn't any closure. And so it made the healing more difficult.
Yeah. And it's interesting how differently we treat friendships, right? We will have a breaking up conversation with somebody that we're dating. This isn't working out anymore. But with friends, it's just like, peace out and we're gone, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen that pattern, and it's just getting worse, I feel like, in our society. But we need to be having these conversations with friends. Losing a female friendship, especially someone that has been intimately involved and interwoven into your life, there's a lot of grief, lot of grief that happens with that. And I truly believe it can be alleviated if those conversations are happening, if we're truly being honest with one another. And this has to be the work of both people in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Being able to talk about the feelings. And, if you're at a point where you're like, gosh, I think we're both in a space where we just need to grow, or we need to allow some breathing room here. But, when I see you out and about, I'm going to give you a hug because I love you. I think if your relationship is rooted in love, you can allow that space to grow in a healthy way that doesn't feel poisonous, or, like you're talking about these fight or flight modes. When you see somebody that's just walked away from you, what happens in your body when you see someone, when you're basically grieving the death of someone that's still living?
Yeah. Which is something we talked about. We talked about that quite a bit because I think some people believe that grief is when somebody dies, you lose a loved one. Grief is not just based off of losing somebody who dies. There are so many different ways to grieve. And so you were grieving our friendship number 1 in a different way than I was grieving it. But it still is grief. It is still extremely painful. And so if we can just love each other a little more and be like, you know what? I really need to take a break from you in this friendship. And I know it's unhealthy. There are some things that I'm thinking about, and it doesn't even need to be a long conversation. But had I just said that, I need to take a break from you. This is unhealthy. I think we both need to grow. And it could have been super short and simple like that. Maybe you would have come back with something else, but at least the grieving process would be so much different than just, I'm going to ghost you, I'm going to walk away, we're going to have no conversation. So now your spiraling thoughts get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then I would just stuff. Yeah.
And I think too, you kind of just briefly touched on this, but now in friendship too, when I confront you and I say something, you're not looking at what I'm saying as being unkind or attacking. It is in love that I'm confronting you. I would venture to say, if my friends do not call out my stuff, I'm going to be like, are we really that close? Because I think a true friend, and this goes back to biblically what is modeled for us to live by Jesus, let's call one another out and say, hey, I'm not going to attack that behavior that I just saw, but look, this is what we can move forward to. This is what we're going to move to. I can expect this of you because I know that you have a faith, and I know that I love you and that I'm saying this in love, but this is hurting you, right? Like your negative behavior is actually hurting you and the people that you love. And so I think we need to kind of switch the stigma of confrontation in relationships as being unkind.
Or negative.
Fighting right. It doesn't have to be. If I'm confronting you because I love you enough to do so. to say the hard thing. And it's hard. Like I've already shared, when I have to call someone out, which has been very rare because I avoid it at all costs, I'm shaking, I'm crying. I feel sick to my stomach. Like I can puke at any moment. So I do not like calling people out, but I do it with people that I love so much. I want to work through this conflict. And I think if we can kind of reframe the way that we see that conflict in relationships, which you and I have done, it takes away all of the nerves, all of the self-doubt, all of the overthinking when we're not together. Because I know this just happened. I'm going to call Jamie in 5 minutes and we're going to work through this. And guess what? I just eliminated days of overthinking, anxiety, inner turmoil, and a lack of inner peace because I was able to call you out immediately.
Yep. So let's just do like a really quick recap here. What makes a healthy friendship? You have to have open and honest communication coming from a loving place. This is what was said. I don't know if this is what you meant. This is how I interpreted it. This is how I took it. And it makes me sad. It makes me mad. Use the feeling words, not just I didn't like it. Well, why didn't you like it? That's important. You have to have some self-reflection there.
Receptivity. We have to receive what is spoken to us, especially from the people that we love and invite into those intimate places in our lives. We have to be able to receive what they say. And if we don't disagree, we can absolutely talk through that. But we need to remove our defensiveness when we're being approached by someone and allow people to share their feelings in a safe.
Yeah. Grace, in the benefit of the doubt, I know that you don't want to hurt me. I know you offer me grace. That's a healthy friendship. Yeah.
And I would say too, championing one another. We didn't really talk about that, but that is huge. I know that you are always in my corner and you are cheering me on. You want me to succeed. You do not see me as your competition or a threat to you.
Yeah.
Right? You and I are our own people. We have our own friendships. We have our own lives, but we are intertwined basically with each other.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? There is not this enmeshment or this unhealthy overlapping of all areas of our life. I mean, we have our lives, but we also encourage one another to go through life and develop other healthy relationships.
Yeah.
I champion you and you're calling and you champion me.
Yeah. We have separate friendships that are not connected with each other. And so there is no jealousy there. You're always cheering on the other person. But we're going to dive deeper into some of these other topics about friendship as the podcast go on.
Well, thanks for joining in today.
Thanks for listening.